In the last episode of The Lion Guard, we see how Kion became Queen Rani's king at the Tree of Life. Everyone was happy, and even some members of Kion's guard had found their animal too. But we never see what happens at the Tree of Life after that. Will new predators come? Will everyone stay happy? Will members of the Lion Guard miss the Pride Lands? Disney hasn't given us much clues on what will happen next, so today, I'm here to tell you what I think has happened at the Tree of Life after Kion became king. And trust me, it might not be like you expected. But first, let's get back to the ending of The Lion Guard, so that you're going to understand the story better. After many attacks of Makucha and his friends, Kion was finally done. He had now completely mastered the roar, so it was easy for him to send Makucha and his friends away. But when Bunga asked them where he sent them, the only answer we got was far, far away. But what if they met someone else at this place far, far away? Someone that would make their team stronger than ever, and who had more hate against the roar than anyone could imagine. Any idea who this could be? Well, I'm talking about the strange lion that had set Scar up into getting his Scar. This lion and his snake had been blown away by Scar's roar just when he thought he was so close to taking over the Pride Lands. He always wanted power, and the roar had taken that chance from him. So when he saw all those animals coming from a weird wind, he immediately knew it was from the roar. "You lost to the roar," the strange lion said. "That's because you are weak, but I can help you destroy it for good." Makucha was surprised and narrowed his eyes. "And why would you help us?" "Because the roar doesn't belong to Kion, and I will make sure he never uses it again," the strange lion said. He had a plan, a real plan. Instead of attacking like wild geese like Makucha and his friends had been doing, they would trap Kion, take him far away, make him weak, and before finishing him off, they would force him to give up every secret of the Tree of Life and the Pride Lands. That way, they could finally take over the kingdoms, and they would have all the power they had always dreamed of. Especially Makucha and Mama Binturong didn't need any more convincing. This time, they wouldn't lose. The strange lions started their training and started to create a team stronger than ever. This time, Kion and that stinky Bunga won't escape. It had been a long time since Makucha and his group were last seen at the Tree of Life. Life had been peaceful. Kion and his friends had grown stronger, and he and Rani were doing a great job at ruling the Tree of Life. Bunga and Binga were always together, eating all the bugs they could find. Fuli and Azad spent their days racing through the grass, and the rest of the Lion Guard had also found their places at the Tree of Life. But most of all, Kion and Rani had changed. They weren't just rulers anymore. They were building a future. Kion knew how important it was for his legacy to continue. He and Rani had started talking about having cubs. One evening, as the sun was setting, Kion and Rani walked together through the peaceful land. They were dreaming about what their future would look like, but they didn't know they were being watched. Suddenly, the ground beneath Kion shifted. Rani barely had time to react before thick vines were surrounding them, wrapping tightly around Kion's legs. More vines dropped from the trees, tying around his mouth before he could use the roar. But before he could break free, a shadow moved in front of him. It was the strange lion. "You didn't think we were gone, did you?" the strange lion growled with Makucha standing proudly by his side. They then ran off, dragging Kion with them. Rani tried to run after them, but soon she started to feel a sudden wave of weakness. Her breathing was heavy, she felt lightheaded, dizzy, as if her strength had drained away. "Kion!" she tried to call out, but her legs started to shake. She gasped for air, unable to keep going. Kion snarled, but it was no use. With his mouth tied and his body completely trapped, he couldn't fight back. The last thing he saw was Rani collapse on the ground before everything went dark. After a while, he finally woke up to a mean voice. "Awake already?" Kion lifted his head and saw the strange lion standing over him, his golden eyes glowing in the dim light. In the shadows, he could see the rest of their army, like Makucha, Aura, and Mama Binturong. You must have a lot of questions, the strange lion said, his voice calm. But don't worry, you won't need any answers. We're the ones who need them. Kion was really confused. We know the Tree of Life holds many secrets, and you, the strange lion leaned in, whispering, you know them all. Kion was shocked. He wouldn't say a word. The strange lion smirked. Oh, don't look at me like that. I know how lions like you think. You'd rather suffer than betray your kingdom. That's fine. His eyes narrowed. We'll see how long that lasts. He turned away. Don't feed him, he ordered Makucha and the others. Not until he talks. Back at the Tree of Life, Rani had just woken up. She didn't understand why she had lost her breath so quickly, but there was no time to think about that now, because Kion was gone. She rushed back to the Tree of Life to tell the Night Pride, which now also included Fuli, Beshti, Ono, Anga, and Bunga. She quickly told them what had happened to Kion. They took Kion, Rani said, trying to stay calm. It was them, Makucha, Aura, Chalan, and more. Balio's ears flattened. They're back? And stronger than ever, Rani said. We have to get Kion back. The Night Pride and the Lion Guard immediately set out to track Kion, but they quickly realized something was wrong. They will never get him from them, Rani realized. Without the roar, we are completely outnumbered. We need a plan. But before she could continue, they heard some strange noises. Bunga immediately knew who it was. Mama Binturong and a few of the others had gone to the Tree of Life to distract the Night Pride from searching for Kion. Everyone, go get them! Fuli shouted. Rani and I will go look for Kion. I'm coming for you, Mama, Bunga happily said. But they underestimated them. They could keep them from going to the animals of the Tree of Life, but they couldn't take the risk of searching for Kion now. Rani panicked, not knowing what to do. That's when Ono's eyes lit up. Everyone, I have an idea. We need help, and some good help too. We need Vitani, Ono said. Everyone turned to look at him. Vitani? Rani asked, confused. She has the roar too, Ono explained. If we can get her, she can help us get them out of here in time and help us to go get Kion back. Only problem, it'll take us a while to get to the Pride Lands. Rani hesitated. They had never asked for help from the Pride Lands before, but if there was ever a time to break that rule, it was now. If we take the Cheeto way, we will be there in no time, Azad said. Rani couldn't think of a better option, so Azad and Fuli immediately set out on their journey to the Pride Lands. The rest of the Night Pride got back to defending the Tree of Life. They just had to hold on long enough for Vitani to arrive, hoping that Kion was okay. The sun was already going down when Fuli and Azad finally reached the Pride Lands. They had run non-stop, pushing themselves as fast as they could go. Do you think Kion is okay? Azad asked, slowing to a stop as they finally reached Pride Rock. Fuli's eyes narrowed. It is Kion. He has to be. They immediately went to the Lion Guard's lair. Fuli called out for Vitani, knowing she must be there. Vitani rushed over to see what was going on. Something must be really wrong if you came all the way from the Tree of Life to get me, she said. We need you, Fuli said quickly. Kion is in trouble. The strange lion from Scar is back. He gathered and trained a whole army together, and they took Kion and keep on attacking the Tree of Life. Vitani's eyes widened. Kion? What happened? They set a trap, Azad explained, and now we need you to help us. Without the roar, we stand no chance against them. Vitani immediately got herself ready. She instructed her Lion Guard what to do while she was gone, while Fuli and Azad were taking some rest before heading out on their journey back. A little while later, the three of them raced back toward the Tree of Life. Vitani was faster than they expected. She must have practiced a lot with her guard. They spent the whole night traveling, and the sun was already coming up when they finally reached the borders of the Tree of Life. Rani was still in panic and worried about Kion when they arrived, but she was relieved when she saw Vitani with them. You're here! Thank you, Vitani! Vitani gave a quick nod. Let's end this. In the meantime, Makucha and the strange lion were still watching Kion and trying to get something out of him. But what Kion didn't understand is why the strange lion hated him so much. He had never seen him before. He then furiously explained why he hated him so much. How he had his plan of taking over the Pride Lands all worked out, and he needed Scar to help him with that. But because of that stupid roar, he got blasted away and was left with a bad leg. His new goal then became destroying the roar once and for all. But what he didn't know was that there were now 2 lions with the roar. Because in the meantime, Vitani was targeting her roar against the predators at the Tree of Life. She wasn't as good as Kion, but has improved a whole lot since they last saw her. It took her a while before she had the predators knocked out. Nirmala, Balio, and Surak stayed close to them while Vitani and the rest went to look for Kion. Anga soon saw traces near the caves nearby, so they rushed over there. Vitani threatened the strange lion to let go of Kion or she would get him. "Yeah, what are you gonna do? You guys are useless without Kion's roar." Bunga burst out laughing. "Oh, you think that only one lion can have the roar? Well, let's see what you think of this," Vitani said. And she roared Makucha away. The strange lion was shocked and quickly tried to run off, but Vitani didn't let him get away and used the roar on him as well. Rani quickly rushed over to Kion to make him free. "Are you okay?" she asked. "Yes, I'm fine, but we have to get the rest of the predators out of here," Kion quickly said. So they all rushed back to the Tree of Life. It was a good thing they did, because Mama's porcupines were about to escape. Together, Kion and Vitani created the most powerful roar, like nobody has ever seen before. The ground was shaking as they sent a big tornado at the enemies. They sent them even further away now, deep into a desolate, rocky wasteland, far from the Tree of Life. And of course, they didn't forget to send it to the cave where Kion was held to pick up the strange lion and Makucha. Now they were sure they were really never going to return. But just as the battle seemed over, Rani started to act weird. She was feeling dizzy and lay down on the ground. Kion quickly rushed over to her. "Oh no!" Kion cried, panic in his voice. "What's happening?" Ono quickly examined Rani, his eyes widening as he realized what had just happened. "She's going to be okay, but I need Makini to confirm what I think it is," Ono said, his voice calm. So Kion helped Rani to get back to the Tree of Life, where Ono whispered something into Makini's ear. Okay, let me see," Makini said. Makini went on to feel Rani's belly, and happily shouted, "You are right, Ono! This is amazing!" "What is it?" Kion asked. Ono hesitated, then spoke softly. "Rani, she's pregnant." Rani sighed, still exhausted but smiling. "I don't know if it's wonderful. I just passed out in the middle of a battle." Kion nuzzled her gently. "That's because you pushed yourself too hard. You should have stayed back." Rani smirked. "Like you would have?" Kion sighed, knowing she had a point. "Fair enough." Kion was about to cry from happiness. "This is great, Rani. Looks like our dream is coming sooner than we thought." But Rani was a little insecure at first. "How am I going to be a good queen if I'm tired all the time?" Makini came to comfort her and told her how Queen Jana was watching over her with pride and how many paintings she had left to guide her. Besides, the Night Pride was now bigger than ever, so everything was going to be fine. And Rani started to feel happy too. "Unbelievable! This is great, Kion!" Bunga said, but before he could continue, Binga shouted, "No, this is Bing-credible!" And everyone started to laugh. Everyone was happy and proud. A new journey awaited them, and Kion felt more ready than ever. It was time for Vitani to head back home again, so Fuli and Azad guided her back to the Pride Lands. She had learned some more about the roar, so if a cheetah way wouldn't fit her, she could now easily make a path. Fuli and Azad said their goodbyes in the Pride Lands and started on their journey back home. But then Azad suggested something strange. "What if we don't take the cheetah way this time? I'd love to spend some time alone with you, Fuli." Seeing how Kion and Ronnie are taking their next steps, I think we should think about that too, Azad said. Fuli was speechless. She really liked Azad and always dreamed her future would be with him, but she hadn't thought about cubs yet. I'd love to travel the long way with you, and that really sounds like a great idea. I'm really excited for our future together, Azad, Fuli told him, and they started their long journey to the Tree of Life. Meanwhile, at the Tree of Life, everything was getting back to normal. Kion and Ronnie had proudly told their grandparents up in the sky about their coming cub, and they were really excited. After Vitani got back to the Pride Lands after a long journey of traveling, she was finally going to get some rest. Or so she thought, because when she arrived in the Lion Guard's lair, there was no one in sight. She went to see Kovu to ask him what had happened, but Kovu seemed really stressed, and told Vitani she had to go with him immediately, because new attacks had been coming since she was away. But she was so confused. Who could this possibly have been? Wasn't there finally peace in the Pride Lands? While Kovu led her to the rest of her guard, he explained to her what had happened. Do you remember Shupavu and her skinks? He asked her. Well, yeah, but what kind of harm can these little animals do? Vitani asked. Kovu then explained to her that they were not alone. Ever since Scar was defeated, Shupavu dreamed of being a leader and to have power. But of course, she had always been too little to achieve any of that by herself. Back when Scar's spirit was still alive, we could always see how dedicated and loyal she was to him. So when she saw Vitani and her roar leave the Pride Lands, she saw her chance. The Lion Guard was now weaker than ever, so this was the perfect opportunity to attack. Shupavu and her skinks had first been following Vitani and the cheetahs for a while to find out why she was leaving. She soon understood that she would be gone for a while, since she heard that the Tree of Life was in danger. She soon changed directions to get her new team together. She knew who she had to find first, the one she had dreamed to be all her life, the big bad lizard Kenge. She knew he was still mad about Ushari's death and hated the Pridelanders, so he could be a great help. And as she expected, Kenge was happy to help, and together with the other skinks, they started to get the rest of their team together. Even though the jackals weren't the smartest, they knew they would be stronger with more animals by their side. Because when Scar got defeated, Kion appointed Jasiri to rule over the Outlands, but Rayuri didn't really seem to care. She just wanted Janja out of her way, and she would be fine. But what would be a better way to get Janja out of her way? Exactly, by joining Shupavu and her team. So she was easily convinced. But you know who else didn't need a lot of convincing? Kiburi and his crocodiles. As long as it fitted in their crocodile way, they were in. So now that Shupavu had created her army, she started attacking. Their plan was to take over the Pride Lands step by step until they ruled everything. And with Kenge by their side, they had already gotten pretty far. But now Vitani had finally returned, and everything will change. Kovu and Vitani finally spotted the rest of her guard, and Imara was down. Kenge had bitten her, and she couldn't move because of the venom. This couldn't hold on any longer. All the Pridelanders were scared, and the guard was tired. Kovu and Vitani decided they would take over the guard's duties for the rest of the day so that they could get some rest. In the meantime, they would have to think of a plan, because this had to stop. Vitani couldn't just use the roar. She had more control over it since her visit at the Tree of Life, but it was too dangerous with all the Pridelanders around. She knew so far Kion had gotten the Pridelanders to unite once and attack together, but was she able to pull that off too? Vitani and Kovu had a long talk. They knew how the enemies thought, because they had been raised with the same mindset. They came to the conclusion that they should ask Kiara for help, since she was eventually the one to convince them, the bad guys, to step over to the good side. But what they didn't know is that Shupavu had bigger plans. As soon as Shupavu heard Vitani was back, she knew she could set her bigger plan into motion. because while the Lion Guard was so busy fighting Shupavu's team, Nayusi and Shupavu had studied the paintings in the secret cave we once saw when the guard and Makini accidentally ended up there, and what they found was terrifying, next level, but it would change everything for Shupavu and her skinks. They found a magic spell, one about evil lions. It said you could bring them back through the element that ended them.
That sounds complicated. What do you mean by through the element that ended them?
Nayusi said. To be able to bring them back, they would also need a piece of fur from the dead lion, some evil venom, and then call the spell out loud. Fur of the fallen, blood of the cursed, venom of those who carry her thirst. From silence and shadow, rise once more through the death that opened her final door. And that is when Shupavu understood.
Of course. Scar died with fire and rose again with fire. Zira drowned in water, so we can bring her back in water. But how can we possibly get her fur? Getting fur from a dead lion seems impossible,
Shupavu said.
Isn't Vitani her daughter?
Nayusi asked.
Wouldn't fur of someone with the same DNA work as well? That's a great idea, Nayusi,
Shupavu said. They immediately went out to prepare the rest of their team. They told them about their great idea, how Zira knew everything about Vitani since she was her mother. With her, they would easily outsmart Vitani and her roar once she returned. They already had the venom because of Kenge, so now they just had to wait for Vitani to return to the Pride Lands to take her fur. But now that Vitani was back, they could finally set their plan into motion.
So, this is what we do,
Shupavu explained.
The Lion Guard is resting, so now it is only Vitani and Kovu. Kiburi, you and your crocs distract Kovu. Reiri, you and the jackals stay here in case anything happens and protect the piece of Pride Lands that belongs to us now. Kenge, you bite Vitani so she can't fight back. Skinks, I want at least 3 of you to take a bite of Vitani's fur. That should be enough. Everyone, prepare yourself. This is our moment.
Night was falling and Vitani and Kovu started to get a bit tired. Kovu was about to take some rest, but then Vitani saw something. Kenge, the crocs, and the skinks were coming straight at them. Weird. Vitani kept Kovu awake and they were ready to attack back, but the crocs had Kovu surrounded before he knew it. Vitani was about to jump, but then Kenge bit her in the leg and she fell down. The skinks knew what they had to do, and they took pieces of Vitani's fur.
Ah, that hurts! What are you doing?
Vitani shouted, but the skinks already ran off. And when the skinks did their job, the crocs pulled back as well. Vitani, are you okay? Kovu asked.
Yes, I'm fine. They took pieces of my fur. How weird,
Vitani said. Kovu and Vitani were still clueless of Shupavu's plan. But with Vitani down, Kovu needed help protecting the rest of the land. And just then, Thurston came by. Well, can't y'all be any quieter? Somebody's trying to get some sleep over here. Thurston! Kovu shouted. You have to get help! Vitani's down and the Lion Guard is resting! You have to go to the Lion Guard's lair and ask them to get over here so they can take Vitani back. I can't leave her alone out here. Please, hurry, and please don't get lost, Kovu said. Well, if that will make this place quiet again, I guess I should do that. And with that, Thurston went off to get the rest of Vitani's guard. Vitani was very confused, but she knew this wasn't good. This wasn't just a random attack. Something was coming. In the meantime, Shupavu and her team got to the place that had once been Jasiri's watering hole, but they had now taken over this place. Everything was ready. They let Kenge bite in some fruit to get the venom out and put it on some leaves. The skinks threw the venom and the fur into the water, and Shupavu called the spell.
Fur of the fallen, blood of the cursed, venom of those who carry her thirst. From silence and shadows, rise once more, through the death that opened her final door.
And then the water started to boil more and more, until Zira appeared in the water. They did it.
Who dares call me back?
Zira asked. Shupavu stepped forward and explained her plan to take over the Pride Lands, to finally have the power the outsiders deserved. But they couldn't do it without Zira, because Vitani was too powerful now that she had the roar.
Ah yes, that ungrateful little brat. After everything I have done for her, she stepped over like it was nothing. But you are right, I know her best, and these Pridelanders should get their payback.
What Zira didn't tell Shupavu and the rest is that she had her own plan. She didn't want just power. She wanted revenge. On Kiara, on Kovu, on Vitani. Her own kids had betrayed her, and it was all Kiara's fault. If it wasn't for Simba's daughter, Kovu and Vitani would never have picked Simba's side, and Zira would have won. Back in the Pride Lands, Thurston somehow made it to the Lion Guard's lair. Even though he got distracted by a butterfly and accidentally rolled into a bush, he did eventually arrive. Thurston told the guard that Vitani was hurt and that they had to get over there, but of course, he didn't remember where exactly they went. Luckily, the venom of Imara had worn off, and they all first went to where they had last seen them, and soon they found Kovu and Kiara. Kovu took Vitani back to the Pride Lands and left the guard to hold watch again. They went to Rafiki's tree, and Makini gave Vitani some medicine to heal faster. But just then, Jasiri came running towards them.
Vitani, Kovu, I need to tell you guys something. Remember our watering hole? Well, Shupavu and her team took it, but something's off. I heard something strange, like a voice talking. We really have to check this out,
Jasiri said. Well, since Vitani still couldn't feel her legs good enough, Kovu and Jasiri went to check out the watering hole. And as they moved closer, Kovu recognized that sound. But how could that be? When they finally arrived, it was what Kovu had been worried about. Mom? But how could this be? He asked Jasiri. Jasiri was just as shocked. They knew this wasn't good, but they did hear a part of Zira's plan. She wanted Shupavu and her team to set the animals in the Pride Lands up against Kovu and Vitani. They should tell everyone how they had been the enemy once before, how Kovu helped her attack Simba, how Vitani tried to take down Nala, and how they could do this again, and that they shouldn't be trusted.
Will somebody really believe that?
Jasiri whispered to Kovu. I don't know, but this is not good. Zira can tell them all about our childhood, all our secrets. She's good at manipulating, so she might find a way. We have to tell Vitani and Kiara, Kovu said. Kovu rushed back to get Kiara, and together they went to Vitani and told her everything that had just happened. How Zira was planning her revenge and was angry with Kiara, Kovu, and Vitani. They didn't know what to do, because if they were to warn all the Pridelanders, they might get scared and it could cause chaos. But if they did nothing, they might believe Zira's stories. They decided to hold back for now and ask Simba and Nala for advice as well. And they told them they were obviously in big shock and decided to get Rafiki as well to ask how this was possible. Rafiki immediately knew what had happened and led everyone to the painting that the skinks must have seen. This, Rafiki said slowly, is the story of the echoed ones. Spirits who cannot return to life, but can whisper through the element that ended them. They can feel negative emotions and live on through them, the strongest being regret, resentment, and unfinished vengeance. Zira's bond to the water is only half of the spell. What truly keeps her here is the pain of her legacy. The more her children carry guilt or shame over the past, the stronger she becomes. So, as long as Kovu and Vitani carry shame for what she made them, she remains alive in the water.
But how do we stop her?
Kiara asked. Rafiki's eyes turned serious. There is only one way. The water must be blessed with truth. A lion must face their past, out loud. Not in shame, not in fear, but in full honesty, and forgive themselves and Zira. so that the feelings that kept her here become less powerful. Kovu and Vitani stood silently, the weight of Rafiki's words sinking in.
I didn't think she still had that much control over me,
Vitani whispered. Rafiki explained to her that her heart still fights her past. That's what gives her this control over her. Kiara stepped forward.
But you're not her, either of you. You've already chosen who you want to be.
Vitani looked down.
Then it's time we prove it.
Kovu and Vitani went to the watering hole, and Kiara went with them for support. When they arrived, they first saw nothing. Mom, are you here? Kovu asked. Then the water started to boil, and Zira's spirit appeared.
So my sweethearts finally return?
I'm not here to be friends, Mom. I'm here to forgive you,
Vitani said. But then Zira said something shocking.
Are you sure about that, even after what I did to Kopa, the young little prince, your best friend?
You said you didn't know what happened to him.
Kovu and Kiara were confused. Who was Kopa? But then, Zira told Vitani what she had done, how she had abused him and left him near the borders of the Outlands to die.
How can you forgive me when I killed your best friend, Vitani?
Vitani couldn't believe it, and she broke down in tears. Kovu and Kiara tried to ask her who Kopa was, but Vitani ran off. Kiara and Kovu were super confused. Why had they never heard of this Kopa?
If you want to know the answer, go ask your daddy, Kiara. He will know.
Zira said evilly, and disappeared into the water again. Kiara and Kovu went back to Pride Rock and told Simba and Rafiki what had happened, and asked them who this Kopa was. Simba got sad and told Rafiki he knew this day would come. Kiara was even more confused now. Simba then told her and Kovu everything that had happened with Kopa. How he was the firstborn of him and Nala and was best friends with Vitani. Simba had told Kopa not to go into the Outlands, but Simba saw how happy Kopa looked while playing with Vitani, so he let them. They played every day, until one day he didn't come home. When Simba and Nala went out to look for him, he was nowhere to be seen. But then they ran into Zira and her lionesses, and she told them that this was their payback for killing Scar. Simba and Nala couldn't believe it. They knew she was cruel, but this was next level. But the weird thing was, they never saw his body. They knew Zira could be manipulative and lying, so they never lost hope of finding him. But until this day, they never heard anything about him anymore. They decided not to tell Kiara and Kion, since they didn't want to scare them as cubs. They were supposed to go on adventures and live their cubhood without fear. Kiara couldn't believe it. First, she was mad that she never knew, but as she let it sink in a little, she began to understand. Kovu also never knew. Vitani didn't really talk about her feelings, and now he kind of understood that. Kiara and Kovu had a long talk that night. They got a whole new perspective on how they would want to raise their cubs in the future. But in the meantime, Shupavu and her skinks didn't slow down as well. After the Lion Guard had kicked their asses again, they went back to make new plans with Zira. Zira told them what happened with Vitani, and that this was their perfect chance. She told the skinks and her team to go search for Vitani, since she must be weak now. Now was the time to talk them over to their side, and with the roar, they would become unstoppable and have power over the Pride Lands in no time. Shupavu knew what to do, and she split her team so they would find her faster. But in the meantime, Vitani had gotten pretty far already. She didn't want to think, so she just kept on running to clear her mind, until she realized she couldn't see Pride Rock anymore. But she didn't care. Her whole childhood was a lie. She never thought her mother would be this evil. Eventually, she was stranded in a jungle that she had never seen before, far from the Pride Lands. She knew the guard would need her, but right now, she just needed some time for herself. It was already getting darker, and she found a place to sleep. She heard some weird sounds. There must be some other animals living here than in the Pride Lands, she thought. But just as she was about to close her eyes, she smelled something familiar. It was a lion, she was sure. So she went back up and called out, asking who was there. "Who are you, and what are you doing here?" a voice asked.
I'm from the Pride Lands. I'm not here to do any harm. I just needed some time to think.
"The Pride Lands?" a voice asked, shocked. Then the lion came closer. "Vitani? Is that really you?"
What? Kopa? But how? Zira just told me that you were dead,
Vitani said, even more in shock. Kopa then told her exactly what had happened, how he had come to their cave to come play with her, but Zira trapped him. She took him away, and when he realized that something was wrong, it was already too late. "Zira beat me, scratched and bit me. She left me on the border of the Outlands to die. But what she didn't know is that I wasn't dead," Kopa said. Kopa somehow made it out alive and dragged his body to a safe place to rest. He was too scared to return. His dad had forbidden him to hang out with the outsiders. He was too scared to tell him what had happened. And what if Zira found him again? When he finally got stronger, he kept on walking and walking. He had lived in many places, but now he had been in this jungle for a while. Vitani was stunned, but really happy. She had never stopped thinking about Kopa, and Kopa felt the same. He had always been scared, but at the same time, he felt really guilty for not returning to the Pride Lands. The thought of having to become king scared him so much, since it would give him a reason to end up in fights more. So he decided to stay back and let everyone think he had died. He always told himself that he would return later, but the longer he stayed away, the more scared he got. Vitani and Kopa talked the whole night, and when they decided to go to sleep, they cuddled up together. They both felt some peace, a feeling that everything would be all right. The next day, Vitani told him about Zira's spirit, what had happened, and why she ran off. Kopa decided that now was the time. He would have to return to the Pride Lands and make up for staying away by helping Vitani defeat Zira. They were scared and talked the whole morning about their plan. And just as they decided to start their journey back to the Pride Lands, they heard something coming from the bushes. It was strange sounds. Even Kopa didn't recognize this. But then Vitani realized it was Kenge. Kenge and some crocs had found them and circled them in. "This is not good," Vitani whispered.
"Well, Vitani, looks like you've made a friend, but that's not important for us. See, you have one choice here. Walk with us yourself, or we'll let Kenge bite you and your friend and drag you guys to Zira ourselves. What will it be?"
Vitani and Kopa looked at each other with fear in their eyes. They were completely surrounded by Kenge and the crocs, with no easy way out. Vitani couldn't use the roar here. There were too many animals around. One wrong move, and they'd both feel Kenge's paralyzing bite before they could even react. Kopa stepped forward bravely, even though his voice shook a little as he told Kenge he wasn't afraid. But they both knew they were in serious trouble. They were outnumbered. Vitani pretended to give up, telling them they would come along. The crocs moved in closer, ready to escort them back to Zira. But Vitani wasn't going down that easily. In a flash, she kicked dirt right into Kenge's eyes and yelled at Kopa to run. Kopa knew the jungle better than anyone, and after some time, they were finally able to shake Kenge and the crocs off, but still they kept on running just in case they were still chasing them. Kopa knew a hiding spot where they could rest for the night, but they both knew this wasn't safe for long, and now they had no choice. They had to start their journey back to the Pride Lands. The next morning, their journey began. They kept on walking non-stop, afraid they might be seen by someone from Zira's army. But this also meant they had a lot of time to catch up on everything that had happened. Vitani told Kopa about his new siblings, Kiara and Kion, and what had happened during the final battle with Zira. Vitani had always been trained to attack and told her how Simba was the enemy. Zira took it so far that even Nuka had to die for it. But what she also said is that Kopa had abandoned her, and that he didn't want to be her friend anymore. Vitani always felt something was off about her story, but as a little cub, she'd believed it, and thought Kopa eventually had left the Pride Lands with another lioness. Vitani started to see Simba's family as the enemy as well, and stood by her mother while she trained Kovu to kill Simba. But because of Kopa's great sister Kiara, the plan failed. She was the reason everyone found peace and happiness, except for Zira, and her hatred eventually became her death. Kopa felt bad for Vitani. She had lost so much, but Vitani told him not to feel bad. The way Zira treated her had made her very strong, and that was the reason she could be a great leader for the Lion Guard on this day. Kopa was amazed to hear that Vitani now had the roar, but before he could respond, Vitani started talking again.
The guard! I just ran off and left them on their own. I'm a terrible leader.
Kopa comforted her that everyone makes mistakes. He was the perfect example of that. He left his whole kingdom and legacy.
Even more the reason we should speed up a bit. Come on, we have to help.
And Vitani and Kopa started to walk faster. Back at Pride Rock, everyone was worried sick about Vitani. Her guard had been searching non-stop, but there was no sign of her anywhere. Kovu was getting nervous. Shupavu's plans were getting better now that they had Zira, and they could really use the help of Vitani and her roar. Just then, Zazu flew in with his morning report, but this time, he was acting nervous.
Sire, you have to check this out yourself! It's a male lion with Vitani!
A strange male lion in the Pride Lands? Simba was confused. Zazu gave him a serious look and told him he really had to go check this out himself. Simba didn't wait any longer and went out to look for Vitani and this strange lion. Kovu and Kiara were also confused. Who could this male lion possibly be? There weren't any other male lions around in the Pride Lands. But before Simba could get far, Vitani and the other lion were already getting closer to Pride Rock. So Kiara, Kovu, and Nala decided to go check it out as well. They caught up with Simba, and when they finally reached Vitani and the lion, they were all in a big shock. There was Vitani, looking tired but otherwise okay, but it was the lion beside her that made everyone freeze. He looked so much like Simba that for a moment, no one knew what to say. Nala's eyes went wide and her legs nearly gave out beneath her. "Kopa?" she whispered, barely able to get the word out. Simba stood frozen, looking like he'd seen a ghost. "It can't be," he said. But it was. After all these years, their long-lost son had returned home. Kopa took a hesitant step forward, then another.
Mom? Dad?
He said, his voice breaking. Kiara watched in shock as she realized the truth. Mom? Dad? That means this has to be her brother. But why had she never heard of him? Nala burst out in tears and hugged Kopa. She then told Kiara that this was indeed her brother, but that it was a long story. They took Kopa and Vitani back to Pride Rock so that they could catch up. But before they could all talk about what had happened, something else was happening. In the distance, dark clouds were forming over the watering hole where Zira's spirit was. Something was happening, and it wasn't good. Back at the watering hole, Shupavu and her team were talking to Zira, who wasn't happy about what had happened. Her screaming anger created dark clouds above the watering hole. After all these years, Kopa decides to return at the worst moment possible. But that wasn't even all. Kenge and the Crocs had the perfect opportunity to get them, and they let them get away. But as she was angrily screaming, she realized something. She knew that her spirit was alive through the anger that connected her to the Pride Lands and Outlands. So now that Kopa has returned, that means there is even more anger now. This was perfect. Simba and Nala would be confused for the next couple of days and won't be as alert as usual. That is what gives her team the perfect opportunity to create more chaos.
Listen carefully,
Zira told Shupavu and the others.
I need you to spread word throughout the Pride Lands. Tell everyone the truth about Vitani and Kovu's past. Tell them how they were trained to kill, how they can never truly be trusted. Tell them Kovu has tricked Kiara so that he could become king and have power. That Vitani only created a new lion guard so that she could have the roar and eventually destroy the Pride Lands with it.
Her plan was simple but effective. Create doubt and fear. Turn the Pride Landers against Kovu and Vitani. And while everyone was distracted by conflict within, she would find a way to destroy Kopa once and for all. Meanwhile, Simba had scouted Zazu to check out the dark clouds above the watering hole, but when he arrived, they'd already disappeared, because Zira was long done talking, and the skinks had gotten into action. But even though Zazu reported back, they knew it was time for a plan. They had to follow Rafiki's words, defeat Zira by letting go of anger. But now that Kopa had returned, there was a whole new source of anger. Because not only Vitani and Kovu were mad at Zira, no, also Kopa blamed her for destroying his life. And that is when he told the rest of the family everything that had happened. He knew he wasn't supposed to play in the Outlands, but still, he wasn't to blame for something that Zira did to him. Zira tortured and abused him. He'd barely survived, and that is why he stayed away from the Pride Lands. Kiara couldn't believe she had another brother all this time, but if he was older than her, what would that mean for the throne? Would she still be the future queen? She knew this wasn't something to discuss now because the Pride Lands were facing bigger problems at the time, but Kovu was just as shocked. Why did Vitani never tell him about this Kopa? He finally felt like he wasn't alone in Zira's torture, even though Kopa had to go through much worse things with her. He now knew it wasn't his fault, but Zira's. He looked over at Vitani. She didn't say anything, but her face said enough. Zira had done some terrible stuff, and now her spirit was back, making things even worse. Not long after, Rafiki showed up at Pride Rock. He had felt something was going on, and when he saw Kopa standing there, his eyes went wide. For a second, he didn't say anything, and then he just whispered,
The circle returns to itself. The lost prince returns when he is needed most.
Everyone gathered around while Rafiki explained what he meant. Kopa had been hurt the most by Zira. If anyone could stop her now, it might be him. But not through fighting, through forgiveness. That was the only way to break her power. Before they could figure out what to do, a young zebra came running up the rock, totally freaking out. Rumors were spreading fast. Stories about Kovu and Vitani, their violent training, and their dark past. Some animals had already started doubting them.
It is already happening, Rafiki said with a serious face. Zira is trying to tear us apart from the inside.
Kovu didn't hesitate. Then we have to stop her together. He looked at Vitani, who nodded without a word. Then he turned to Kopa. Will you help us? Kopa looked at his family, then at Vitani. Honestly, he had every reason to hate Zira for what she did to him, but revenge wasn't why he came back. I'll help, he said. Not for revenge, but to finally end this for good. So, the next morning, the group made their way back to the old watering hole. The same place where Zira had been brought back, the place where it all began. Kovu, Vitani, Kiara, and Kopa stood at the edge of the water, with Simba and Nala not too far behind. You could feel the tension in the air. Rafiki stepped forward.
Now it is time, he said. Speak your truth, Kopa. The water is listening.
Kopa looked down at the dark water, remembering everything, what she had done, what he had lost. Zira? He called out, and just like before, the water started to bubble, and Zira's face appeared again, dark and angry.
Well, well,
she hissed.
the little prince grew up. Come to cry about the past?
Kopa's paws were shaking. Everyone was watching him, waiting. This was the moment. He had to forgive her to break her spirit. That's what Rafiki said. But Kopa couldn't do it. His voice cracked. I thought I could, but I can't. Before anyone could stop him, Kopa turned and ran. Away from the water, away from the others. He didn't stop when Vitani called after him. Didn't even look back. He ran and ran all the way to the borders of the Pride Lands. Eventually he slowed down and sat near some rocks, trying to catch his breath. He had failed his family again. But then he heard a voice. Hey, are you okay? Kopa jumped and looked up. A lion was standing nearby, with a red-brown mane, a scar across his eye, and a calm look on his face. Who are you? Kopa asked, stepping back a little. The lion walked closer. I'm Kion. I'm part of the royal family. Who are you? I don't think I've seen you around the Pride Lands before. Kopa blinked. Wait, Kion? As in, Simba's son? Kion nodded. Yeah, why? I'm Kopa, he said. Simba's son too. Kion just stared at him for a second. Wait, what? He said. You have a brother? Ronnie asked then. Vitani already told me I had a younger brother as well. It's all a really long story, but I definitely am your brother. I've had some trauma, and I ran off from the Pride Lands until I came across Vitani again. She took me back home, or so I thought. Now I'm not sure if I made the right choice anymore. What did you mean with again? When did you meet Vitani? Kopa told him that it was all a bit complicated, but that Vitani was his best friend when he was still a little cub. But then Zira tricked him and almost killed him. She was the reason he eventually ran away from the Pride Lands. Well, I had met Zira before, and she had tried to trick me too. But before Kion could say anything else, Kopa warned him. Seeing as he was becoming a dad, he shouldn't go to the Pride Lands now. Now that Zira's spirit is back, it wasn't safe for them to go to the Pride Lands. But that also turned on something in Kopa's mind. His little brother was becoming a dad and was responsible. And he couldn't even say 3 words to a ghost and save his whole family. He had to go back and make things right. I have to go back. I just realized something, but you shouldn't come. It's too dangerous. But Kion, being Kion, didn't stay behind, of course. When the Pride Lands are in danger, he still feels like he has to help protect it. But he and Ronnie were still super confused. What possible new dangers could be there now? So then, Kopa explained what had happened. How Shupavu and her new army were causing trouble for many animals. How they woke up Zira's spirit and got even more help to cause trouble. And if they ran into the pregnant Ronnie, she would be an easy target for them. So that is why he suggested they stay back. Why would you even travel when you're pregnant? Aren't you putting yourself in unnecessary danger? Kopa asked. Ronnie nodded. Yeah, we know, but family's important. We haven't told them about our cub yet, so it will be a nice surprise. And I think they can be a great help to get us started. Kion also didn't have a doubt in his mind. They would help the Pride Lands at all times. But there was no time to talk further because you know who had also reached the borders of the Pride Lands were Kenge and the Crocs. And it wouldn't do any good for Ronnie's baby to get bitten with his venom right now, so they had to get on the move, and fast. But Ronnie wasn't as fast as they hoped, so Kopa decided to run before them to get help. Kion could wear them off with the roar for now, but they had to do something. Kopa went on to get Vitani's guard. He wasn't ready to go back to Zira's watering hole yet, and he knew that the guard was trained to help them as well. The guard helped escort Ronnie and Kion to Pride Rock for safety, but now Kopa really had to go back with them. In the meantime, everyone had gone back to Pride Rock, discussing a new plan, but nobody expected to see Kopa return with Kion and Ronnie. But Kiara didn't even look at that. The first thing she saw was Ronnie's belly.
Wow, Ronnie, are you pregnant?
Kiara happily asked. Well, Ronnie broke the news then and explained how they had thought to safely deliver their cubs with family surrounding them. They expected there wouldn't be any danger in the Brideland, so they thought it would be a happy surprise. But Ronnie was too far in her pregnancy now to travel all the way back to the Tree of Life, so they had to stay here, even though it was more dangerous. It only meant that they had to make Zira and her team disappear faster. The good news is that there were now 2 roars in the Pridelands, but before they could continue to make a plan, Kion first had many more questions. He had a brother? But why had he never heard of him before? Kiara joined the conversation, also mad that their parents had never told them about a brother. But Simba and Nala explained how they didn't want to scare Kiara and Kion. If they had told them what they thought had happened to Kopa, they might have always felt scared and wouldn't dare to go out on adventures alone. And besides, talking about Kopa was really hard for Simba and Nala, and all the animals in the Pridelands understood that. That is why no one really brought it up, especially not with other animals around. Kiara and Kion slowly began to understand. They would have been much more afraid of Zira if they knew this. It really made Kion think of how he wanted to raise his cub. It was like Simba could read his mind because they didn't even get the time to congratulate him yet. Simba and Nala were very happy and proud. They knew Ronnie and Kion were going to make great parents. But there was no time to really catch up because before they knew it, they heard strange sounds coming closer and closer. They soon realized that what they heard were crocs and jackals. Shupavu's army tried to close them all in. But why? They would never be able to take them all down, so they must have something else on their mind. Everyone was super confused. What were they thinking? The first thing that went through Kion's mind was that if they want to take Ronnie, do something to their cub as some kind of revenge on Simba. But Vitani saw more trouble for Kopa. Zira could use him too. Everyone panicked. What was their plan? There was no time to think because Shupavu's army already started their attack.
We let you guys escape last time, but this time around, we won't.
Kiburi screamed, and suddenly Zira's army charges at Simba's pride. Kion rushes to Ronnie, trying to get her to safety with the help of Simba, but Kiburi's float pushes them out of the way, giving Kenge enough time to bite Ronnie. And before they knew it, some crocs dragged Ronnie away. It all happened so fast, nobody really understood what just happened. What do they want from Ronnie? Eventually, they had to retreat since more anger would only make this worse, because the more anger they let out, the stronger Zira gets. They needed a real plan to finally stop all of this. But why did Zira even plan this in the first place? What could be the benefit of her taking Ronnie? She was about to give birth and needed extra care, so that would only be a burden. While everyone at Pride Rock was still very confused, Zira's army had already gotten back to the watering hole in the meantime.
Shupavu, bring her out.
Zira asked with a smirk on her face. The skinks forced Ronnie to sit in the watering hole. Seeing the spirit of Zira, Ronnie's heart began to race faster and faster.
What do you want?
Ronnie asked, trying to get the words out of her mouth.
Oh, you poor thing. Don't you understand? I thought you were smarter than that. With you here, I can finally unleash my master plan!
Zira shouted, beginning to laugh maniacally. Ronnie still didn't understand a bit. What could Zira possibly want from her? Hours passed, and the Pridelanders were trying to come up with a plan to get Ronnie back. They knew this wasn't going to be an easy fight against Zira. Her spirit was only growing stronger, and she wasn't planning on giving up. And the growing hate against her in the Pridelands was also not really helping. But not only Kion started to gain more hate towards Zira, because ever since Zira had returned, Kopa started having flashbacks. He had been having terrifying nightmares of what she had done to him as a young cub. Kopa was scared and began to shake.
Kopa, what happened?
Vitani said, worried about her best friend.
It's Zira. I can't forget all the things she did to me.
Kopa sobs with the trauma clearly visible in his face.
The nightmares, they just don't stop. I thought I finally lost them, but ever since her spirit is back, they've been worse than ever before.
Vitani couldn't handle seeing her best friend like this and started to feel more and more anger towards her mother. She had caused so much pain to her and her family, and not even just her family, also to Kopa. And the worst thing was that Vitani felt like it was her fault. If she never became friends with Kopa, he wouldn't have gone through all the horrible things Zira did to him. Looking at these sobbing Kopa, she just couldn't handle her anger anymore, and let out a massive roar that echoed all through the Pridelands and into the Outlands. But what Vitani didn't think through is that this was the thing that keeps Zira alive. Her spirit is fed by anger, so that roar was just what Zira had needed. The water underneath her started to boil, and the water lit up even more. Zira started to feel something new, a greater connection with the water in the clouds. She could feel that she now had the power to attract rain and control weather. But this wasn't even all, because Zira started to feel something else too. It was like a spirit, but she couldn't quite figure out what it was yet. But in the meantime, Vitani didn't even realize what she had just done. Back in the Pridelands, Kion stood at the top of Pride Rock and stared at the sky. He just heard the roar and he knew this couldn't be good. So he went to talk with his grandfather first before returning to Pride Rock.
Kion, something is troubling you.
His grandfather Mufasa said. Grandfather, Zira's army kidnapped Ronnie and I need to get her back. She's going to give birth soon. Kion was really worried, but Mufasa told him,
Kion, evil feeds on fear. Don't let it grow.
Kion thought about that for a second, and suddenly he got an idea. Thank you, Grandfather. I have to go now. And Mufasa disappeared into the clouds again. But just as Kion was about to go back to Pride Rock, he saw something. It seemed like lightning in the Outlands? That couldn't be good. They had to get Ronnie out of there, and fast. But in the meantime, something big was happening in the Outlands. Zira had figured out what she felt, and it wasn't good for the Pridelanders. It was a spirit, another lion who didn't feel like he had completed his circle of life.
Nuka!
Zira shouted.
That's it! I have to bring Nuka's spirit back!
Shupavu was confused as she had never heard of this Nuka before. Zira explained that Nuka was her son, the son that Simba had killed.
Shupavu, go! Go to the cave and find something. A spell! Yes, a spell. Find a spell and bring my beloved Nuka back!
Without another word, Shupavu slithered off to her skinks to hatch a plan. But Shupavu, how will you find another spell to bring Nuka back? Najano questioned. Shupavu suggested that she go back to the Cave of Secrets so she could find out some more spells for Zira, just like they did when they brought Zira back. Shupavu led Nujano and the other skinks through twisting tunnels, moving quickly and silently. The entrance to the Cave of Secrets appeared before them, vines curled around the entrance like claws. Inside, a soft light was glowing, making strange shadows dance on the walls. Najano hesitated and didn't want to go in at first, but Shupavu didn't give the other skinks a choice, because if Zira wanted it, then they had to find it. So they all went into the dark cave. Shupavu soon noticed faint symbols on the boulder that read a spell. She told the other skinks to help her remember as well, and they all whispered the spell until they got back to the watering hole. Shupavu arrived breathless.
I found it, Zira!
Zira's eyes glowed with pride.
Then let's bring my son home.
With the skinks gathered around the watering hole, Shupavu read out the spell.
Through mist and tide, return from the past. From water's grasp, let shadow last. By moon's pull, the lost may rise. Nuka, awaken! Open your eyes!
The Outlands trembled. Storm clouds gathered above, lightning crackled across the sky. The water bubbled violently, just like when Zira returned. It began rising, faster and faster, until, next to the watering hole, something started to burn and smoke. Then came some big lightning, and when it hit the spot, there was a huge fire. But that fire wasn't for nothing, because then a face started to show in the fire. And there he was. Zira had brought Nuka's spirit back. Zira looked beside her.
My son! Mother? You brought me back? But why?
Nuka asked, unsure.
You see, Nuka, you were the only one to stick by my side. I should have seen it when you were still alive, but I want to make it up to you. I need you, Nuka. You are my favorite son, and I know you are the one that can help me defeat Simba,
Zira said. This is all Nuka ever wanted to hear, so of course, he was all in.
Oh, of course, Mother. I will always be there for you. Let's give those Pridelanders what they deserve.
During all this happening in the Outlands, Kion had gotten back to Pride Rock where all the Pridelanders had gathered around. They needed all the help they could get. Everyone had heard that thunder in the Outlands, and they knew this wasn't good. They needed a plan, and fast. But then, suddenly, it began to rain, and the river alongside Pride Rock began to swirl. The river, which had been calm, twisted upwards until Zira's spirit was visible. Everyone was stunned. Some of them had never seen anything like that before.
You look so lost without your precious queen, Kion,
Zira said. Zira chuckled.
Ooh, I know you want to use the roar to knock me down here and now.
She tilted her head, eyes narrowing.
But would that save Ronnie? Or would it destroy what you want to protect? If you truly believe you are stronger than me, come and prove it. Or stay here and watch your queen die.
The water flowed back into the river, and Zira's form smoothly flowed into it. This whole conversation made Kion mad, but he knew he had to keep control of his roar. Time had passed to the middle of the night, and Kovu and Vitani sat near Pride Rock, their eyes fixed on the waterhole. It looked normal, quiet, a little too quiet. This felt weird after Zira's over-the-top entrance in the Pridelands. Vitani flicked her tail.
Something is really wrong. Zira wouldn't appear and then just disappear for nothing.
Kovu nodded. Yeah, if she's using the river to reach us, she could be using it for more than insults. But you know what I don't understand, Vitani? If she wants to take a queen, why didn't she aim for Kiara? Why would she take Ronnie, a lioness she doesn't know anything about? It would have made Simba much more angry if they would have taken Kiara.
You're right about that. I didn't even think about that. Maybe we should go to the watering hole ourselves. See if we can find something out,
Vitani said. Kovu agreed, and they went closer to the watering hole to check and see what Zira was planning. When they reached the border of the Outlands, Kovu asked, Vitani, are you sure about this? Vitani leaned forward, scanning across the rocks. No shadows, no signs of movement.
Come on, let's go,
she mumbled. They arrived at the waterhole, but there was nothing. It felt dead. But just as they wanted to return to Pride Rock, the water began to bubble. But when they looked at the watering hole, it wasn't in the water where something strange was happening. It was smoke next to the watering hole. Strange.
This is weird, Kovu. I don't like it.
Vitani said. Kovu was about to say mother when the two siblings realized it was a new face. It was Nuka? Nuka? Vitani whispered. Nuka let out a soft smirk.
Wow, finally a warm welcome from my siblings. Took you long enough?
Vitani was really confused.
But how?
I don't know,
He admitted.
1 minute everything was fire, the next I was here, like this. I don't know what Zira's planning,
Nuka sighed, looking down into the water beneath him.
but I'm not part of it anymore.
Then help us and make things right. We can figure this out together,
Vitani said. Nuka hesitated. For a moment, it seemed like he truly cared.
No,
He said finally.
not yet. I need to figure this out first. I need to know what happened before I see everyone again.
You have to help us, Nuka. Zira is even crazier than she was when she was alive. She can really harm all the animals out there. With your help, we can finally put an end to this, Kovu said, trying to convince him.
I know, but please don't tell anyone I'm here yet.
Nuka said. Vitani and Kovu didn't know what to say, but eventually they left again, since there was no sign of Shupavu's army or Ronnie over there. The second they disappeared into the grass, the water stirred again. Slowly, Zira rose from the river again. She laughed, strolling with him, her red eyes sparkling.
You played your role well. They still fell for it, just like old times,
Nuka said happily. Their plan was in motion. After Vitani and Kovu left the waterhole, their minds were still turning over everything Nuka had said. But as much as Vitani wanted to believe it, something felt off. He was different, Kovu murmured as they walked. Something's not right.
I know, but it's Nuka, Kovu. Maybe he's just lost,
Vitani said. Kovu let out a slow breath. Or maybe he's lying. Vitani didn't reply. She wanted to believe her brother, but Kovu was not wrong. There was something about the way Nuka was speaking, the way he talked, and how he was avoiding questions. Something was wrong. They finally arrived back at Pride Rock before anyone had woken up. But it just didn't feel right to Kovu. He didn't want to lie, and he found the whole situation very strange. So he decided he was going to talk to Simba as soon as everyone had woken up. So when everyone woke up, Kovu immediately went to Simba and Nala and explained what had happened. He told them everything, about the waterhole, about Nuka, about the strange way he got there. You're sure it was Nuka? Simba asked carefully. But Kovu was sure of what he saw. Scar deceived us with fire, Simba said carefully. What if this is just another trick? Kovu didn't like the way he had phrased it, but he knew what he said. Simba had lived his life undoing Scar's lies, and now something weird was happening again. Everyone knew this wasn't good. If Zira had the power to bring Nuka's spirit back, who knew what else she could do? And Ronnie could give birth any second, so they had to make a plan, and fast. Kion's mind kept spinning. He knew they were stronger, but they had to be careful since they didn't know the powers of Zira's spirit, especially now that she has gotten stronger. So he decided to ask Vitani for help. She knew Zira the best, and she was a great leader as well. But Vitani didn't seem so confident this time. She was still shaken by the whole Nuka thing, and she had no clue how to stop Zira. But Kion was sure there was something they could do. They both had the roar, so they must be the ones to be able to stop them. Kion and Vitani then decided to visit the Cave of Secrets again. Maybe there's something in there that could help them, just like the Lion Guard did when they wanted to defeat Scar. But they first went by Kovu and Kiara and asked them to unite the Pridelanders. They have helped them before, and with everyone together, there's no way Zira can win. Kovu and Kiara went into action, and Kion and Vitani ran to the cave. But as expected, they couldn't really find anything useful. That was until they reached the end of the cave again, and Kion remembered why he ever went to that cave in the first place, to find out the secret to defeat evil. As they both looked into the water, Kion finally realized something. The original Lion Guard had been created to defeat great evil, so that means the roar had been created to defeat great evil. He and Vitani had to defeat Zira together with the help of the roar, but they couldn't do it alone, because as Rafiki said, they first needed everyone to forgive Zira for all the harm she had caused. They had to cut her loose from anger. Vitani and Kion started to work on their roars. They couldn't let Zira influence them, because if they used evil in their roar, the effect would backfire them. Kopa went ahead and helped Kovu and Kiara to get all the Pridelanders together, which made him feel really good. He could finally give something back to the Pridelands after he abandoned them for so long. Of course, all the animals would help. Kion and his guard had done so much for them in the past, they were all willing to help Kion. Kion decided they had waited long enough, and the next morning they would attack. As everyone went to sleep, Vitani had a long talk with Kopa. They were both really nervous for what would be coming, but they knew they had to do this. They both felt like they were finally complete again, and they weren't going to let Zira ruin that. Vitani told Kopa that she hoped that one day they could be more than just friends. But first, they had to make the Prideland safe again. Kopa felt the same and was still really scared about what was coming. They then hugged each other tight and fell asleep. The next morning rose. Nobody was really ready since there wasn't a real plan, but they knew they were stronger and all the Pridelanders were having their bags. Kion led all the lions from Pride Rock toward the Outlands, with Vitani by his side. As they got closer, he soon saw Ronnie lying in the water. She looked helpless and tired, and it made Kion angry, but Kion remembered his grandfather's words.
Kion, evil feeds on fear. Don't let it grow.
Is everyone ready?
Kion then asked, and they all let out a loud roar as they charged to the watering hole. Then Zira's spirit appeared again.
Well, look who's back. My two lovely children with their new family. Well, think it's time for Nuka to join the family reunion as well then.
And that is when Nuka appeared.
So it's really true?
Kopa said to Kion, but before Kion could respond, Nuka started to talk.
Kovu, I know I haven't always been so nice for you, but that was because I never saw that you really were stronger. I now finally understand what Mother saw in you.
Zira pretended to get angry and screamed at Nuka asking what he was saying, how this wasn't the plan. But Nuka kept on talking and convinced Kovu and Vitani that he really had changed and wanted to help the good now. So he then told Vitani that she would be the one that could make their spirits disappear again, since she was the leader of the Lion Guard now. He told Vitani she had to go into the cave next to the watering hole, where a spell was written behind a stone. Vitani hesitated at first, but Kion got angry and told her to move. He needed to get Ronnie back as soon as possible. Vitani felt like she didn't have a choice and went into the cave, looking for the stone. But it turned out that her gut feeling was right, because before she knew it, she was closed in by some crocs and jackals. Kovu looked at Nuka with a disappointed face. He knew he had betrayed them, but he also kind of felt sorry for him that he still believed Zira. But there was no time to stand still because Ronnie was screaming that her contractions had started. She was being guarded by a lot of animals who were really not being helpful to her.
What do you want, Zira? What do you want from Ronnie?
Kion angrily screamed.
You can take me instead, but I have to make sure my cub is safe. Just tell me what you want. Oh, Kion, you will soon understand. But in the meantime, I think I will just enjoy from up here and wait till this little one takes his first breath in my watering hole,
Zira said. But then, Rafiki began to panic. He told Kion he had to do something. Rani must not give birth in the poisoned watering hole. Kion tried to think, but his mind was spinning. Then he remembered what his grandfather had said about anger. Kopa! Kovu! You have to forgive Zira! Show her that you let go of your anger! This way, she'll lose her power and we can defeat her, just like Rafiki explained before! Kopa was nervous, but he knew he had to do this, for his family and for Vitani. Kovu didn't need much convincing. After seeing Nuka still believed his mother, his anger got replaced by feelings of sorry for her. He felt sorry she never got to experience the good, happy life he had now, and that her life was filled with anger. So that is exactly what Kovu was telling his mother, and he truly meant it. And inspired by Kovu, Kopa started his speech as well. He told her that she wasn't part of his life anymore. He had found peace with the help of Vitani, and he finally realized what was really important. He didn't have time to be worried with Zira anymore. He forgave her for everything she had done, because if she didn't, who knew if he still turned out the strong and smart lion he became now after living all those years alone. Then the sun started to come through, making Zira's spirit smaller and smaller, and with that, Nuka's spirit lost its power too, and he was the first to disappear. In the middle of all this, Rani began to scream louder and louder, screaming Kion's name. Kion was done, and he ran toward Shupavu's army who had been guarding Rani. Zira's spirit was shrinking and fast. This let the animals that stood around Vitani off guard, and she managed to escape. Now, Kion! She screamed, and together they carefully roared at Zira, destroying her spirit. But before Zira completely disappeared, she screamed something to Kion.
You think you've won, Kion? Just wait! That cub will carry my fire! You'll see! Your greatest enemy is yet to be born! Sisi ni sawa!
And then, she was gone. But Kion didn't have time to think about what Zira just said to him, because Rani's contractions were getting worse, and he knew it was almost time. The animals guarding Rani were clueless without Zira, and Kion easily kicked them off and got to Rani. But just as he arrived, he already saw his cub lying in Rani's arms. But then, another shock came. Rani realized that she isn't done, and the contractions kept coming until... another baby? They were having twins? She managed to get out of the water and gave birth to another beautiful, healthy cub. Everyone was overjoyed. 2 healthy little cubs. But not everyone was so happy, because Rafiki seemed a little panicked. Everyone thought they were safe now, but Rafiki then explained how dangerous it was that Rani's birth started in the poisoned watering hole. It might have affected the cub. Zira was so powerful and filled with so much evil, it could have affected the little cub's clean minds. But this wasn't something to worry about now. First, they had to get Rani out of there and take proper care of the little cubs. They brought Rani to a bit of a safer place to take some rest, and everyone was relieved that there was finally peace in the Pride Lands. Vitani was so proud of Kopa. He was finally able to truly forgive Zira after everything she had done, and Kopa told her it was because of Vitani. Now that he could fall asleep with her every night, he isn't so afraid of nightmares anymore. He was happy they had found each other again. But what nobody realized was that danger was far from over, because it turns out Rafiki was right. Something was up with one of Rani's cubs. Well, if you want to know what happens to Rani's cub, make sure to hit that notification bell so you won't miss any new episodes. Let me know what you think is going to happen next, and I'll catch you next time.